In human history, there are not only turning points, but moments when God resets the very foundations of the future. Babel was such a moment, a grand structure, born of humanity's unified will, became a symbol of failure, division, and the final limit of human pride. But from that very place, from the ashes of ambition, from the breakdown of language, from the voices lost in confusion, God did not end history. He restarted it, not through the strength of a rebellious crowd or a tower reaching the heavens, but through the quiet obedience of one solitary man and his faithful journey toward divine covenant. He planted the seed of a new nation from a man named Abram. The stories of the Tower of Babel and Abraham, seemingly separate, are bound together in a divine continuum, a plan to recreate humanity, not by power, but by faith, not through human structures, but by a heavenly promise. Let us delve into the story found in Genesis chapter 11, a pivotal moment in the history of mankind. The gathering on the plain of Shinar. Before there were nations, before there were peoples, the earth spoke with one voice, a crystal-clear stream flowing through every soul. The descendants of Noah, post-flood, spread out, seeking new lands. They moved eastward, reaching the fertile plains of Shinar. Here they chose to settle, a vast, fertile land nourished by the Tigris and Euphrates, perfect for a new beginning. In unity, they found strength. No barriers, no differences. Everyone understood each other, from spoken words to shared dreams. Such unity fostered ambition. With a common language, ideas spread like wildfire. Campfire evenings evolved into strategic meetings. Laughter became the backdrop to their collective dream. They were no longer separate families, but one body, one community, a nation in the making. They didn't build walls to divide. They built a tower to reach the heavens. This was the turning point of history. From the land of Shinar, an idea took root and spread across every heart. But that unity led them to a bold idea, to build a city, a tower that would reach the skies. Let's build a peak that touches the sky. We will make our own name, never to be scattered across the earth again. With each brick placed, they believed they were creating something extraordinary, not just a structure, but a symbol of humanity, of unity, of power surpassing all limits. Their city bore no God's name, for they believed themselves the architects of fate. No need for heaven, they would redraw paradise themselves. Yet, amid the construction's roar and their pride, they were unaware, and I was watching them. A silence filled with warning from the heavens before the storm. Towers soared higher, each new level nearing the stars. It was not merely a structure of bricks and mortar, but a human dream reaching for the divine. Nimrod, the powerful leader, ascended the steps like a terrestrial god. He sought not prayers, but craved power. His followers hailed him as the connector of heaven and earth. A throneless king, yet he reigned in the hearts of dreamers. Yet that dream perhaps was nothing but a mirage of arrogance, built upon the unstable sands of human rebellion. From eternity, the Lord looked down, not from curiosity, but with mercy and impending warning. They are one people with one language. If left unchecked, nothing will be impossible for them. Dawn, a peculiar event occurred. A worker shouted, "Hand me a brick!" But it was heard as a howling wind. Language fractured. Familiar sounds became foreign. They screamed, argued, and despaired. Plans ceased. Understanding vanished. The project was abandoned, the tower incomplete, a gaping wound between heaven and earth. They left Shinar in groups, each with its own new speech. That place was named Babel, confusion. From one language now sprang many. But the Lord, who had caused the division, would also be the one to reunite. Through one man, one lineage, one new plan. In the ruins of Babel, mankind spread across the earth. Yet the Lord did not forsake them. Among thousands of peoples, he chose one man. Gathering on the plain of Shinar. From Babel, humanity branched in many directions. Nations formed. Language became a boundary. Yet the Lord did not abandon mankind. He remembered his promise to Noah that one day blessings would come to all nations. Among the descendants of Shem, Noah's son, was a man named Terah. And in Terah's household lived a man who would change the world. A radiant city in the heart of Mesopotamia, where people worshiped the moon god and lived amid comfort and prosperity. Yet within Abram, son of Terah, there was an emptiness no idol could fill. One night, amidst the silence, a voice resonated, not from a temple, but from the invisible one. "Leave your home, your land, and go to the place I will show you." God said, "I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you, and through you all nations on earth shall be blessed." 75, Abram hesitated not. Along with his wife Sarai and nephew Lot, he left Ur, left the idols and the past, and moved into an uncertain future. They reached Haran, then continued southward to Canaan with no map, no guide, only faith and God's promise. At Shechem, the Lord appeared to Abram. "To your offspring I will give this land." And Abram built an altar there, not to elevate himself as with Babel's tower, but to bow in worship, not for his own name, but to glorify the Lord's name. The land of Canaan, fertile though it was not always hospitable. A severe famine struck. Fields became barren, streams silent. Abram was compelled to go down to Egypt to seek sustenance. Fearing the Egyptians' reaction to Sarai's beauty, Abram told his wife, "Say you are my sister." And indeed, Pharaoh took Sarai into his palace. However, the Lord inflicted plagues upon Pharaoh's house. Once the truth was revealed, the king returned Sarai to Abram and expelled them from Egypt. Upon returning from Egypt, Abram and Lot found themselves with such abundant possessions that the land could no longer sustain both. their herdsmen started to quarrel. Abram, ever a seeker of peace, suggested to Lot, "We are kinsmen. Let not strife divide us. If you choose the left, I will go to the right." Lot beheld the lush Jordan Valley, reminiscent of Eden, and chose it. However, that area was near Sodom, a city infamous for its wickedness. Meanwhile, Abram stayed in Hebron, where he built another altar, knowing true blessing came not from fertile lands, but from the presence of God. After Lot had departed, the Lord spoke to Abram, "Lift your eyes and look from where you are, to the north, south, east, and west. All that you see, I will give to your descendants. Your offspring will be like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust, then your offspring could be counted." Abram continued his journey through the land, bearing the everlasting covenant bestowed by God. Kings from the east attacked and took Sodom, capturing Lot as a prisoner. Upon hearing the news, Abram acted without hesitation. With 318 trained servants raised in his household, Abram pursued them to Dan, launched a surprise attack by night, and rescued Lot. On his return, Abram met Melchizedek, king of Salem, a priest of God Most High. He blessed Abram, who in turn gave him a tenth of everything. Once again, God spoke to Abram, "I am your shield. Your reward will be very great." Night, as Abram gazed at the starry sky, the Lord said, "Count the stars if you can. Such will be the number of your descendants." Abram believed the Lord, and it was credited to him as righteousness. A sacred covenant was established not with ink and paper, but with blood and promise. The Lord commanded Abram to offer a sacrifice, a heifer, a goat, a ram, a dove, and a young pigeon. He complied, and as the sun set, a deep sleep overtook him. In a dream, God informed Abram that his descendants would be enslaved for 400 years, but would ultimately be delivered and return. A blazing firepot and a torch appeared, passing between the sacrificial pieces, symbolizing the eternal covenant between God and Abram. The Lord appeared to Abram once more, saying, "I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless." He renamed Abram as Abraham, meaning father of many nations. Sarai was also renamed Sarah, meaning princess. The Lord established the sign of the covenant, circumcision. Every male in Abraham's household, including servants, was to undergo circumcision, signifying their belonging to the everlasting covenant. Abraham obeyed, and that very day, all the males in his household were circumcised, as commanded by God. 3 strangers visited Abraham's tent. He welcomed them hospitably. They were messengers of God. They inquired about Sarah and declared, "Next year, your wife Sarah will bear a son." Hearing this, Sarah laughed within the tent, thinking she was too old to have children. But the Lord said, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Indeed, a year later, Sarah bore Isaac, whose name means laughs. When Isaac grew up, God tested Abraham's faith by instructing him to offer Isaac as a sacrifice on Mount Moriah. Without hesitation, the next morning, Abraham prepared the wood, called Isaac, and they set off. In Abraham's heart was the serenity of absolute faith. Upon arrival, Abraham built an altar, arranged the wood, and bound Isaac. As he was about to strike, an angel of the Lord called out from heaven, "Abraham, do not lay a hand on the boy." He then saw a ram caught by its horns in a thicket and offered it instead of Isaac. That place was later called Yahweh Yireh, meaning the Lord will provide. God reaffirmed his promise to Abraham, "Because you have not withheld your son, I will greatly bless you. Your descendants will be as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed, because you have obeyed me." Abraham and Isaac returned home not just as father and son, but as chosen instruments in God's plan of salvation. Abraham lived many more years, rich in faith and blessed by God. In his old age, he sent a servant to find a wife for Isaac, trusting that the Lord would guide them. The Lord led the servant to Rebekah, a woman from Abraham's own family, marking the continuation of God's covenant with Abraham's lineage. Isaac and Rebekah became the parents of Jacob, who was later renamed Israel, from whom a new covenant nation arose. Abraham was buried at Machpelah alongside Sarah. This site became the resting place of the patriarchs and matriarchs, the beginning of a lineage chosen by God. In the past, humanity built the Tower of Babel to make a name for themselves. However, the result was confusion and dispersion. From the ruins of pride, God did not abandon humanity. He chose Abraham, a man who built no towers to the sky but altars on the earth. Abraham did not exalt himself, but glorified the one who called him. From the dispersion at Babel, God used Abraham to gather a new people through a covenant. These are two contrasting paths, one leading to pride and ruin, the other starting with faith and obedience. God used both to weave his plan of salvation, and we, the listeners of this tale, also face two choices: to build towers for ourselves or to follow God's call. The Tower of Babel has fallen, but Mount Moriah remains. Faith endures, and God's plan continues. As we have seen, the Tower of Babel marks the ultimate limit of human pride. In an age when language was one, humanity united with a single will to build a tower reaching to the heavens, not for worship, but to demonstrate power, not to seek God, but to replace him. Indeed, that initial unity held a formidable power. Humanity, with one voice and one mind, pooled its intellect and strength for an unprecedented undertaking, a symbol of their undying ambition. They didn't merely aspire to touch the clouds, they sought to dictate destiny, to carve their names into eternity with stone and mortar, rather than through faith and obedience. It was an attempt at self-deification, a rejection of their created role, a proud echo against the very one who gave them breath and language. But precisely at the place where they craved greatness, God intervened, not with fire nor with flood, but in an intangible form. He confused their language. Imagine the sudden chaos. Speech dissolved into meaningless noise. A worker called for a brick, only to be handed the wrong tool. Collaboration warped into suspicion. Trust fractured into fear and isolation. Shared laughter now echoed as alien sounds, and the great structure, the symbol of unity, became a monument to division. A seismic crack erupted between voice and thought, leaving people unable to understand one another. This event was not merely punishment, but a turning point. This dispersal, though painful, was an act of hidden mercy. It prevented a concentration of power that could have led to even deeper corruption. It compelled humanity to explore the earth, diversify cultures, and created the necessary space for God's plan of redemption to unfold. A plan founded not on human ambition, but on divine grace. From the ruins of Babel, where an arrogant structure collapsed, God began a new plan. No longer building a human empire, but cultivating a people belonging to Him. The ashes of Babel, the seeds of a new promise were sown. Not a physical tower, but a lineage of faith, beginning with Abraham, would be established. A people not seeking their own glory, but reflecting the glory of their Creator. And ultimately, centuries later, the very linguistic division of Babel would find its miraculous healing at Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit united diverse peoples under the message of the gospel. Babel remains an enduring reminder. The path to true greatness lies not in building upwards towards the heavens, but in humbling oneself before God. Then, amidst the lost calls of the scattered peoples, a distinct call rang out. Abram, not a king, not a warrior, but an ordinary man, living in a land of idolatry. God did not choose him for his talent, but for his readiness to obey. The call Abram was not just a command, but an invitation into an intimate, challenging relationship. He had to abandon the known to embrace the unknown, staking his entire future on an unseen promise. While Babel symbolizes rebellious unity, Abraham is the image of faithful solitude. The paradox is this: while Babel disintegrated because it tried to unite by human strength, from Abraham, a solitary individual, God raised up a new people, bound together by faith, not by language or stone. This nation would be the instrument to bring blessing to all peoples, a reversal of the selfish purpose of the Tower of Babel. Builders Abraham did not build towers. He built altars. Those altars, erected in foreign lands, were silent declarations that the surest foundation is not collective power, but a personal connection with the Creator. He did not call people to unite according to his own will. He obeyed the solitary call from heaven, a call that demanded complete surrender and trust. Every step he took, from leaving his homeland of Ur to his willingness to offer his only promised son, Isaac, was a vivid symbol of absolute obedience, even without fully understanding God's intentions. His faith journey shows that obedience is not blindness, but absolute trust in the good nature of the one calling. From the scattering of Babel, Abraham became the gathering point for a great plan of redemption. Through him, the nations would be blessed. Through him, a new path was opened, no longer rebellion seeking fame, but reconnection in a loving covenant with God. The story of Babel and Abraham is not just history, but an eternal paradigm for all ages. Whenever humanity erects modern towers of Babel, through political power, technological dominance, or the worship of material fame, the call of Abraham still echoes like an invitation to return. Go to the land I will show you, not to build an empire for oneself, but to start a new people, a community born from faith and obedience. The story of the Tower of Babel and Abraham is not merely ancient history, but also a profound lesson, resonating powerfully in today's complex world. The Tower of Babel is the eternal image of humanity, striving for greatness through power, control, and self-exalting ambition, only to ultimately reap division, misunderstanding, and chaos. It is a warning about placing faith in our own finite strength instead of in the infinite Creator. Today, we witness countless modern towers of Babel being erected, not just of brick and mortar, but also of ideological systems and invisible power structures. It might be the worship of consumerism, keeping us chasing ephemeral things, political polarization amplified by social media turning dialogue into confrontation, or the ambition to control nature with technology, while ignoring long-term ethical and ecological consequences. They all bear the mark of ambition to transcend human limits, yet sometimes forget that true strength and unity come from obedience and humility, the acknowledgement of our place within a larger order. The result isn't just visible division, but also the erosion of trust, widespread anxiety, and a sense of emptiness amidst material abundance. Meanwhile, Abraham, a solitary yet faithful nomad, shows us another path, a model of true greatness. His greatness stemmed not from colossal structures or worldly power, but from quiet trust and absolute obedience to God's plan, even when the path was fraught with hardship and testing. Abraham's humility and obedience are not weakness or resignation. They represent the strength found in recognizing one's own limits and trusting in one greater, one who has the power to make the impossible possible. It stands in stark contrast to the illusion of absolute control pursued by the Babel builders, an illusion that always leads to disappointment and collapse. He teaches us that inner strength and lasting legacy are built on the foundations of faith, integrity, and covenant relationship with the Creator. This narrative also reflects core values under challenge in modern life. In the relentless pursuit of power, wealth, technological advancement, and personal fame, we must pause and ask, what constitutes the true value of life? Is it not perhaps humility, compassion, and service to others rather than self-focus? Values like compassion, forgiveness, faithfulness, and truth, though sometimes deemed outdated, are the only solid foundation for a meaningful life and a healthy society. Whenever we are tempted to build our own Tower of Babel, whether in our careers, families, or communities, it is crucial that we heed the call of Abraham. Answering the call of Abraham today means choosing to build community based on genuine care rather than virtual connections. It means using technology to serve humanity, not to control or replace relationships. It involves striving to heal societal fractures, advocating for the vulnerable, and managing natural resources responsibly. That call is not to seek glory for ourselves or a small group, but to courageously walk in faith, fulfilling a grander plan for the common good of humanity and building a community based on trust and love. We can learn that true greatness is not measured by what we build for ourselves, nor found at the pinnacle of power or fame, but comes from the enduring values we cultivate within our souls, from faith in a purpose higher than ourselves, and from obedience to right principles, to timeless truths. Worldly glory fades like smoke, but what is built on the foundation of faith and love will endure. Babel fell, but that was only the beginning of something far greater. In the ruins of pride and confusion, God revealed a shocking plan to rebuild humanity, not through bricks or empire, but through one man's faith and obedience. Abraham was chosen, not to rule over many, but to bless all nations. He became the father of a promise that reached beyond time and borders, a promise built not on power, but on trust, covenant, and divine purpose. While Babel scattered the people, God's plan through Abraham would gather them again, not with a sword, but with a voice, an invisible call that echoed through generations. Those who heard and followed became a new kind of people, bound by faith, not blood.